first of all, welcome everybody to Plymouth and Huberfield and the Wall That Heals Welcoming Home Ceremony. My name is Bill O'Boyle. I am a native of Plymouth, 210 Reynolds Street. That's where I grew up. And I may have left Plymouth, but Plymouth never leaves me, I can tell you that. We have a great program here today. We have a lot of distinguished speakers. Of course, our most important guests are the names on that wall right there. So give them all a round of applause, please. And we're gonna talk about the fellow who's responsible mainly for spearheading this drive to bring the wall to Plymouth, and the thousands of people, students, adults, veterans that have come here and visited the wall this week. It's been an amazing emotional experience. We're going to get started. Protocol is God before country, and we're going to bring up Reverend Brian Dotson of Faith Baptist Church, which is right over here in Plymouth, to give the invocation. Reverend?
It's an honor to be here today. Will you all bow with me in prayer, please? Heavenly Father, we come before you now first with hearts of gratitude, thanking you for all the blessings of freedom you have so richly given to us. We thank you for all the brave men and women who have given themselves and are giving themselves even now in service to this great country, and we owe them all a tremendous debt. We also come before you now, Father, with hearts that are broken with the realization that there are over 58,000 brave souls represented by this wall, and that each of these names represents countless more who even today are still suffering. The families and friends and comrades at arms that suffer the wounds of combat, the wounds of regret, the wounds of loss and of grief. And so we come before you today clinging to the promises in your holy word, that you have good news for those who are depressed and cast down, that you bandage and heal the wounds of the brokenhearted, that you set captives free and give them liberty, that you do all these things by your only begotten Son, the Lord Jesus Christ, who gave himself as a sacrifice for all who will call upon him. And so we come to you, Heavenly Father, to ask for healing of our hearts and minds. Help us to seek your face so that your peace and your presence will be known and felt among us today. We ask for your blessing to be upon these proceedings, and we ask for all these things in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
I'm going to ask you all now to please rise, and the Wyoming Valley List Band, under the direction of Andy Kolodziejczyk, will play our national anthem. And if you wonder where the flags are, they're all over, but there's a big one over there on the school. Thank you. That wasn't that important anyway. Okay, I also want to say that when Clyde called me back in December, I guess, and told me about his dream of bringing this wall that heals to his hometown, I asked him what I could do to help, and he made me the chairman of the weather committee. So So thank you. Thank you. I think I did a pretty good job. We have a lot of celebrities here today and officials here today, and each and every one of you, we want to thank you for attending. But I want to introduce those who are here today, who you'll be hearing from during the program. You already heard from Reverend Dotson. Next to Reverend is Frank Coughlin, the President of the Plymouth Borough Council. We have Congressman Dan Muser, Senator John Udicek, and Mr. Caffrey, I forgot your first name, but Thomas Caffrey, representing the governor's office, is here today. We have Holly Speece, the Borough Secretary Treasurer and key volunteer in this effort. Does anybody know the next guy? I'm not sure. Okay. That is Sergeant Clyde Peters, the guy who we owe gratitude for bringing us here today. Okay, we've got a couple of housekeeping things that we have to do here. This is from Congressman Matt Cartwright, who could not attend today, who sent a congratulatory letter to Clyde and the committee and the borough. And he says in the letter, "It is a distinct honor to recognize Mr. Peters, an Army veteran and Purple Heart recipient, for his selfless service to our country. Mr. Peters served admirably during the Vietnam War as part of the unit known as the Big Red One." And he goes on to detail the ambush in the battlefield when Clyde was wounded. And we all know that story about what he did in helping a comrade to safety. He talks about the monument and says it serves to comfort the families of these heroes and emphasizes the gratitude we all feel for the heroes who serve in our armed forces. The wall that heals includes the names of more than 58,000 service members who made the ultimate sacrifice during the Vietnam War. It also honors the 3 million Americans whose lives were forever transformed as they were called to serve in that conflict. It is a small piece of history, and it is an honor to have it displayed in our community. I extend my personal gratitude to Mr. Peters, all the committee members and council members in Plymouth Borough for bringing this memorial to northeastern Pennsylvania. We also have congratulatory remarks from Senator Bob Casey. He said, "I want to express my gratitude to Clyde Peters and the Plymouth community on this occasion. By bringing the wall that heals to Plymouth, Clyde and the committee and the Plymouth Borough Council commemorate an incredibly important piece of history for America's veterans and offer Plymouth residents a chance to honor the 7 Plymouth men who sacrificed their lives in that war. The wall that heals is inscribed with the names of the more than 58,000 troops killed during the Vietnam War, a solemn memorialization of those brave soldiers. We cannot forget their valor and their contribution to our country. On this occasion, I am reminded of something my father said, Governor Bob Casey, by the way, said as he addressed troops before they deployed to serve in the Gulf War. We pray for military families and their loved ones serving around the globe, but we also pray for ourselves that we may be worthy of their valor. My hope is that the wall that heals will remind us to continue honoring our nation's veterans by fighting for their hard-won benefits, including ensuring their access to quality health care, employment, and educational support, and other essential resources. Veterans represent the best of our nation. We owe them a great debt of gratitude. Sincerely, Senator Casey. Put that down there and risk that it doesn't fly away. We also have, let's close that. We have here from Senator Toomey's office, Mr. Frank Mazza, his regional director, and Senator Toomey sent this Today we have the opportunity to honor our current veterans and pay tribute to the sacrifices of the service members lost during the Vietnam War. Memorials, including the Wall That Heals, provide a measure of comfort and healing, preserving the memory of those fallen heroes. It also serves to teach future generations and remind us all the cost of freedom. In closing, I would like to recognize Clyde Peters, a decorated Vietnam veteran, for his efforts in coordinating today's event, collaborating with the VFW Post 1425, Plymouth Borough officials, and countless other volunteers. Clyde is to be commended for helping bring the Wall That Heals to northeastern Pennsylvania and his work on behalf of all veterans. That's from Senator Toomey. Okay. I know I have the edited version of today's program, which I'm used to edits. We're first going to call on a gal that has done countless tasks to make this happen. She has been a dedicated volunteer and Clyde's right arm during the entire process of bringing the Wall That Heals to their hometown. And I'd like to call on Plymouth Borough Secretary Treasurer, Miss Holly Spees. Holly.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mr. O'Boyle, for the warm welcome. I cannot thank our volunteers and this community enough for coming together to make this event so successful. I was very honored when Mr. Peters requested that I assist him in bringing this Wall That Heals to Plymouth. I was very honored because he explained to me that we were going to be bringing home 7 soldiers that lost their lives serving our country. And especially with all the controversy that took place many years with this war, we knew that a lot of our soldiers were not welcomed home. So by bringing the Wall That Heals home, we felt that we were not only providing them a welcome home, but also a celebration of their lives in serving our country. I want to thank all the organizations that helped and assist us to make this event happen. I want to begin by the countless volunteers that signed up and became a part of it. I want to thank all the ambassadors, the school volunteers, the overnight watchmen, and also I want to thank the VVFM and their staff for their assistance in making this event very successful. I joined one of their school tours yesterday, and it was very educational, and a lot of the information I learned I didn't know. I want to thank our police and fire companies that assisted in providing lights and safety and security for our site. I also want to especially thank the organizations that helped: Plymouth Alive, Plymouth Neighborhood Watch, the Daughters of American Revolution, and our Plymouth Borough Council in providing all the support and assistance that we needed. This event, like I said, would not have been possible without the support of this community. And I firsthand saw people stand up and become part of the solution. And that's exactly what we need in order to revitalize our community. Thank you.
Before we call up the next speaker, I want to also recognize somebody who's standing way in the back up there. But her name is Juliana Blaylock. She's a native of Honesdale, and she travels with the Wall That Heals, and she's been here every step of the way. I just want to have her come up. Now, we have a chair here for you, Juliana, but if you'd like to say something, we would like to hear from you about what it means for her to bring the Wall That Heals close to her hometown. You can do it.
Well, they didn't let me know that they'd be calling me up. So, of course, I'll keep it short and sweet. I just really want to say, again, thank you to everyone for coming out. It always means a lot when I get to bring the Wall That Heals out to communities. It's so important to continue to educate about this time period in the Vietnam War and that era in our nation's history. But to bring it so close to home has been extra special for me. I again want to thank the volunteers that have been out here helping us set up. have been guarding it overnight and helping us help everyone who's visited, the hundreds and hundreds of visitors that we've had and the school tours that we've had. It does mean a lot to me. Again, I really appreciate it. I can't say enough how much. They say you never work a day in your life when you love what you do, and I'm blessed to have that a part of what I can do here. Thank you.
During this week, I've watched Juliana in action, and she's been handling the tours of all the students that come through. And trust me, if there was any student who showed the least bit of irreverence about this display, she took care of that real quick. And those kids all got an education, but she's done a heck of a job, and we thank her for all she's done this week. All right, our next speaker, our governor is out of the country right now. He's not here, but he has sent a representative and a message, and that will be delivered by his regional director, Thomas Caffrey. Thomas?
Good morning and thank you. I would like to share this message from Governor Wolf. Greetings. It is my honor to join with local veterans to recognize the importance of having the Wall That Heals on display in Plymouth, and to thank Clyde Peters not only for his work in bringing this memorial to Luzerne County, but also for his service to our country as part of the U.S. Army Big Red 1 unit in Vietnam War. Since the infancy of the United States, the fundamentals of rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness have been courageously protected by those Americans willing to serve in our armed forces. The Wall That Heals serves as a significant reminder of the men and women who so honorably served more than a decade of fighting in challenging terrains of Southeast Asia, where they faced extraordinary and unprecedented dangers. We will never forget their sacrifice, and we value their continued service to their fellow veterans today, as they embody the motto of the Vietnam Veterans of America. Never again will one generation of veterans abandon another. As citizens of the United States of America, we owe an inexpressible debt to our veterans, and it is their service that allowed our nation to prosper and has allowed us all to live in freedom. As governor, and on behalf of all the citizens of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I extend my sincere gratitude to our veterans, and I encourage all citizens to reflect with an appreciation and commendation on American heroes, past and present. Thank you.
This is a big deal, huh? This is pretty important. We got the governor out represented. We've got congressmen here. We got senator. We got a lot of people offering congratulations to this guy and his committee, and that's terrific. It really means a lot. I also want to now call up a member of Congress. He's a friend. He goes to my church. I see him and his wife almost every Sunday when he's not in Washington, you know. He's a representative from the 9th Congressional District. We have U.S. Representative Dan Muser. Dan?
Thank you all very much. It's an absolute honor to be here. I do want to thank Billy O'Boyle. You have many great Plymouth hometown boys, and he's certainly one of them. So thank you, Billy, for this today. You know, I live right over the mountain. And actually, this is not my district. We're not in the 9th Congressional. However, we are all from the same community. I'm in Plymouth on a regular basis. We play football here over the years. We're all from the Wyoming Valley, and we're all Pennsylvanians, and we're all Americans, that's for sure. So it's my honor to serve in Congress. All of you. You know, way back when I was a little boy, sitting here like these children are, we had a few Vietnam ceremonies, very few, too few, welcoming home ceremonies. There weren't many, but I remember them somewhat. But I remember more what we watched on television, and the war, the battle, the deaths, the flags at half-mast, the families being disrupted, the sacrifices being made by the men and women over there in Southeast Asia fighting to keep our freedom, to keep our country, to fight against communism, because they were called to do so. And they did so with bravery and complete selflessness. And their families were there too. And then when they came home, Didn't get any better. They weren't welcome. Fingers were pointed. They were blamed, and it was troubling. Thank God, America woke up, and we came to understand that freedom isn't free, and the work that these men and women, many of which are here, and thank you all very much for your service, the Vietnam veterans and all veterans that are here. We are a grateful nation to you. And we've had time over the last couple of decades, few decades, to say thank you, and say thank you for your service, and say welcome home. But there are some we didn't have that opportunity to do so. And those are the people on that wall, the men and women on that wall. And folks, that's what's one of the greatest things about today and that wall. We now have that chance to say that, to say thank you, to say God bless you, to say thank you for your service, and say welcome home. And I salute you. So God bless Plymouth. It's a great day. I'm really honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressman Muser. Right now, we're going to call up the president of Plymouth Borough Council. Now, this guy has done a good job as a councilman, and it seems like there's a lot of guys who grew up in Plymouth Township or Nanticoke that are trying to run towns and the state and everything else. I don't know how that ever happened, but a couple of these guys over here, and including Jerry Mullery, who couldn't make it today, played baseball and not that well. But now they're running the town, they're running the state. I don't know. I guess I can feel pretty confident going forward that they'll remember Plymouth and whatever they do. But the next guy I know too, because he runs the best fantasy football league in the country, the Colonels League. You're president of Plymouth Borough Council, Mr. Frank Coughlin.
Frank Golick, Leonard Bish, Sterling Coates, Joseph Sienkiewicz, David Wecome, David Lee, Edison Phillips. Today I hope you're looking down from heaven and truly know that your hometown of Plymouth has not forgotten your supreme sacrifice in defense of our great country. So on behalf of your hometown and everyone that's gathered here today, welcome home. To all the Vietnam veterans and family members of Vietnam veterans, living or deceased, I cannot ever imagine what any one of you have gone through or are still going through. But I hope by having this replica of Vietnam Veterans Memorial truly brings peace and healing to all of you. I would please ask everyone, as you tour the wall and are looking at the over 58,000 names, just think about what they must have went through. And also think about what all their family members had to go through and are still going through to this day, with the loss of their loved ones or suffering by loved ones. The Borough of Plymouth and our country cannot ever begin to thank you enough for giving up your life for the freedoms we all enjoy today. Also, let us not forget we pay tribute today to all of those who served our country in Vietnam and anywhere, in any conflict, in a time of war and in a time of peace. These men and women who have defended our country, our freedom, and our way of life continue to do so. So thank you for your service. As I spent time the last few days at the wall, I heard a lot of questions about the war in Vietnam. So to all of you that are too young to experience anything that ever had to do with the war in Vietnam, or may not even have been born until well after the end of the war, I would ask you to take some time and do a little research on what the war is about and what these fine gentlemen and women had to go through in defending our country. I just can't thank these people enough. And also what they endured on the return home. They weren't treated as our veterans are today. So let's just keep that in mind, that the way these men in Vietnam, when they return home, nobody's ever treated that like that again. On a personal note, my family was lucky. The members of my family that served in Vietnam all returned home safely. So on a personal note, I'd like to thank my Uncle Frank and my Uncle Jim for the service of their country. This memorial that you see behind us, it's called the Wall That Heals. But as I've talked to Clyde numerous times in our conversations, what has gone on in this town in the last few months, I think it should also be called the Wall That Unites. Plymouth Borough has come together in preparation for the arrival of the Wall That Heals. Everyone working together to make the Visitors Wall the huge success that it is. I'd like to thank everyone for their hard work and dedication. There are just too many groups and organizations and individuals to thank without not leaving someone out. But there are two very important people I'd like to mention at this time. First is our Borough Secretary, who is, as they said, Clyde's right arm and left arm, Holly Space. So thank you, Holly. And the second, we all know, is Clyde Peters. Without his vision and love for his fellow veterans, the Wall That Heals may have never visited Plymouth. So Clyde, thank you. When Clyde told me his idea about the wall, the first thing I said to him is, what do you need me and the rest of the Borough Council to do? Clyde, I know how proud you are of how this event has turned out. It's a distinct honor to call you my friend. Thank you on behalf of all the residents of Plymouth for a fantastic job. I'm very honored that I have been asked to speak at our welcome home ceremony on behalf of the Borough of Plymouth. So in closing, I'd like to say God bless all our veterans and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Okay, here's where it gets a little goofy now. Our next speaker was supposed to be the Luzerne County Veterans Affairs Director, who could not make it. So, Holly Speece told me that Clyde said, tell Billy to take his place. So I get a chance to talk about Plymouth, because I love Plymouth and I always will. And actually, Clyde, when you leave, I might move back. I know I'll feel safer then, you know, because I remember Clyde when he was a kid. And I remember Clyde when he used to climb the walls that used to be around this stadium on a Friday night football game. He'd come down on this track. Actually, it was cinders back then. And the first place he and his buddies would go was right around the other side to the visitors. Just looking for one person to look cross-eyed at him. You talk about battles? Clyde fought a lot of battles on this field. And there are a lot of athletic battles on this field. Plymouth and Nanticoke, especially. But none of those battles were like any of the battles that Clyde and all those guys on that wall fought for us. I'm old enough to remember Plymouth in its heyday, and I very much want to see the success of the revitalization plan that they are trying to put forward, which I believe, Holly, there's another meeting this Monday here at the school. So I encourage all Plymouth people to come out and offer your input and your help in making that happen. Because I remember this high school, the high school with the connecting bridge to the junior high school. I remember the campus with the sidewalks and the shade trees. It was beautiful. The soldiers and sailors statue is still out there where we had ceremonies that my dad made sure I attended with him. Huber Field with its beautiful wall that was built in the 1920s by the WPA. The Little League field that sat right over there at the end of Wadham Street. And the wooden fence painted with all the businesses in town. And how wonderful those days were. And if you go up and down Main Street, you remember places, and I maybe have to put my glasses on right now. And you think about Golden Quality, the post office that's still there, Walt's Servette, where the kids used to hang out on Friday and Saturday night and play the jukebox and dance and have fun. Murgo's Hot Dogs. The building's still there. Matter of fact, I saw Carol Murgo last night. She's Snoggy Murgo's daughter. Not again. Okay. Where Steve Murgo used to mix a little beer in the mustard. And us kids thought that was pretty neat, you know. The VFW, that is so close to Clyde's heart. The American Legion, where my dad served as commander of both during his time here. The Plymouth Public Library, and they need your support as well. The Shawnee Theater, where many of us may have gotten our first kiss. The Cut Right Drugstore on the corner of Center Avenue. Ray and Derek, where you used to get a cherry Coke. And Ruth Picton with her red lipstick used to serve us. Where the women shopped at Wiles. And then Mitch Plessett's men's store up the street. Joe's Pizza, that became Grotto Pizza, started here in Plymouth. Broadmarkles. Smolocks, where we used to get wiffle balls because nobody else sold them. So we had to come all the way from Reynolds Street all the way down to Bull Run to get wiffle balls and bats. Boyke Mattis's, where we all learned how to shoot pool. And we stood out front, held up the parking meters and watched the world go by. Al Wasley Jr., Al Wasley Jewelers, Ben Franklin's. So many memories. Last night I was with the Plymouth High School class of 1959 that's celebrating their 60th reunion. One of the class members is Mrs. Yvonne, widow of Joe Yvonne, our basketball coach. Mickey Waligorski's there. His parents held the first franchise, the only franchise for a long time in Pennsylvania for Mr. Softy. These are Plymouth people. And this is Plymouth, a great town. And it'll be great again. But we're gathered here this morning to honor those more than 3 million Americans who served in the U.S. Armed Forces in the Vietnam War. And the wall that heals, and the names of the 58,276 men and women, 8 women, 1 from Scranton, all nurses, who made the ultimate sacrifice in Vietnam. 75 from Luzerne County. Clyde Peters, the Vietnam veteran / war hero, who spearheaded this effort to bring the wall to his hometown, especially wants to recognize those 7 Plymouth natives who lost their lives that Frank Coughlin just talked about. David Lee, Clyde's nephew, Lenny Bish, Sterling Coates, Captain Sterling Coates, Frank Glowiak, Edison Phillips, Joe Sienkiewicz, Daniel Wecome. But when I visit the wall, and I visited several times this week, and I look at all those names, I begin to wonder about what could have been for all of these fallen heroes. What was lost besides their lives? I wonder about that. What would they have done with the rest of their lives had they lived? They never returned to their families. They never went back to school. They never sought a career, never got a job. They never married, for the most part. Never had children. They never coached in the Little League here or mini football. They never joined organizations like Rotary or Kiwanis or ran for political office. What could have been for these heroes? We are all very fortunate to be here today, and we all have enjoyed life in these United States and all of its freedoms that it offers. Because of each and every one of those names on the wall, and for all veterans who have bravely served in the United States military. Like Clyde Peters, our leader. The bravado that Clyde displayed when he was called to duty and went to Vietnam was founded here in Plymouth. And as we used to say, Clyde done good. He carried a wounded comrade out of the jungle to safety. Clyde is a hero. Just like all the names on that wall and all veterans who have been in battle. Bringing the wall to Plymouth, his hometown, was Clyde's dream. And we thank him for seeing his dream to the end. Clyde's nephew David Lee is on the wall. Clyde escorted his nephew home from Vietnam. This week, this wall, well, they mean everything to Clyde. Thank you, Sergeant, for your service to your country, your family, and your community. I'd now like to call up another speaker who was always eloquent. Another guy that played Teeners baseball years ago. Him and Jerry Mullery played for Plymouth Township. I think John played second and Jerry played first, which I think at Cooperstown that is listed as the worst right side of an infield ever assembled. But not being Hall of Fame baseball players, they are slowly becoming Hall of Fame public servants. And it's my honor to bring up Senator John Udichak.
Thank you, Reverend O'Boyle. Mr. O'Boyle has opened the door to levity, and I want to take that moment and that opportunity to thank Bill for serving in two roles today. One, as a wonderful master of ceremonies, and as you can see by his athletic attire, he's going to be offering track and field tutorials to the children following the program. But Bill is correct. I grew up on this field. Not only did I play Teen League Baseball here in Plymouth, I played for the Super Bowl champion Shawnee Indians in 1983. And it was on this field and in those younger days that I heard this phrase. Bill O'Boyle mentioned about the men and women who were rising through the ranks of a political profession from Plymouth and Plymouth Township, trying to take over the local communities in Harrisburg, Washington, and perhaps the world. You all remember this phrase: it's Shawnee against the world. Today, the world has come to Shawnee. We gather on this beautiful, sun-kissed day to share a somber moment, an inspirational moment, a moment of quiet reflection, and most certainly a moment to heal the wounds of war and to bear witness to the mobile Vietnam memorial known as the Wall That Heals here in our community of Plymouth. I must begin my remarks with a special thank you to my friend Clyde Peters, whose tireless efforts have been instrumental in bringing the Wall That Heals to his hometown. Persistent and persuasive as a thundering tank, Clyde is a guy that gets stuff done. Clyde would see me over on the Dunkin' on Main Street and say, "Hey, Johnny, I got an idea." And I'd say, "Oh boy." I'd get a large coffee and I'd sit down. And Clyde said, "I have this idea about bringing our boys who were lost in Vietnam, bringing them back home, bringing the world to Plymouth and to honor our veterans." And that's all it took, was one idea. And my God, what a beautiful and thoughtful idea it was to bring the Wall That Heals to Plymouth. Clyde went to Vietnam as an 18-year-old kid to serve his country, and today, just a few years older, Clyde still answers the call of service to his nation, his community of Plymouth, but most of all, Clyde has never failed to answer the call to his fellow veterans. Thank you, Clyde. In observance of the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War in 2016, I was honored to host a ceremony at Luzerne County Community College to recognize the 11,000 servicemen and women who served in the Vietnam War from Luzerne County. That anniversary ceremony helped me understand the history of the war. But today, as I view the names on the walls that heal, as I talk to veterans who served in families who have lost loved ones, it helps me better understand the great personal sacrifice made by every veteran whose name is etched upon this beautiful monument. The wall that heals is a powerful reminder that we must never forget that the sweet, sweet fruits of liberty, the bounty of peace, and the comfort of freedom, all of it comes from the sacrifice of a precious few heroes known as America's veterans. When you visit the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C., if you've had the opportunity, you understand it evokes so many emotions. Time almost stands still as you watch the scene play out in front of you. As you speak and witness family members who have lost loved ones, veterans who have come to find some measure of peace and to pay respects to their fallen comrades. Unfortunately for many of us, however, we will never get to share that powerful experience in Washington, D.C. The wall that heals allows us to honor our veterans, to learn about their sacrifice, and it allows us to grieve together as a community, right here at home, right here in Plymouth. I hope everyone who visited the memorial this week has taken the time to learn about and reflect on the magnitude of 58,318 names that are on this wall. Think of that number, 58,318 lives. You can go from Plymouth Township to West Pittston, and I still don't think you would get a population number that reflects the magnitude of the number that's on this wall. They were men and women, fathers and sons, daughters, sisters, brothers. They were family. They were our family, the American family. On this wall, there are 7 names of our family members from here in this community of Plymouth, and they are forever etched in the memory of the United States. David Lee, Leonard Bish, Sterling Coates, Frank Lewicki, Edison Phillips, Joe Sienkiewicz, and Daniel Whitko. We honor these 7 men today and forever. We pay special tribute to them and their sacrifice. It is our charge to honor their sacrifice by living up to the ideals they helped preserve with their lives, the ideals of God, country, and family. As we pay tribute to the fallen heroes on the wall, I want to also take a moment to honor those who made it back from Vietnam, many of them in attendance here today. How about a round of applause for our Vietnam veterans? The men that came back, like Clyde Peters and brothers Rich and Bob Prees, dear friends of mine who served in Vietnam, like Bronze Star winner Steve Bernanke and Silver Star winner and a mentor of mine, the late Tom Tighe, who I served with in the General Assembly. Their service and the service of all of America's veterans must never be forgotten. These men, like so many who have served, do not seek out our recognition for their service, but they most certainly deserve our praise and recognition. They embody the best of America, the best of Luzerne County, and the best of us. I'd like to leave you with one final thought. Bill O'Boyle, a friend and an excellent reporter for the Times-Leader, who is himself a native, as you heard, of Plymouth, posed an important question to Clyde Peters this week in the Times-Leader. He asked Clyde, "Does war ever leave you?" Clyde responded, without missing a beat, "You leave the war, yes, but war never leaves you, ever." Let it be our responsibility, our mission, as grateful Americans, to resolve ourselves to never leave behind America's veterans, ever. God bless our veterans. God bless the community of Plymouth, and may God's light and love always shine on these United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. I told you he could be eloquent. Anyway, right now we want to have a couple representatives come up and present wreaths for the wall that heals. Also, I just talked to Clyde. Are there any members of the families of any of the 7 men from Plymouth who lost their lives here with us today? Any family members? Who are you representing? Edison Phillips. Who else? David Lee. Danny Whitco. Anybody else? I didn't hear you, sir. David Lee. There's Mrs. Coates right there, Sterling's widow right there in the hat. Anybody else? And her son David. Who's that? David Lee. We want to welcome all of you here today and thank you for attending and helping us with this ceremony today. We want to honor them, especially being from Plymouth, but of course all of the names on the wall. But thank you all for being here. Okay, we got one more speaker, and I'm sure you all want to hear from this guy. Now, years ago when we were kids, Clyde pitched for the Kiwanis on this field right over here. He claims to have been a pretty good pitcher. I think I hit at least 2 onto the 50-yard line here, over the wall, over the press box, off of Clyde. Thank you, Clyde, for your service there. You know. And I don't mean any disrespect by having to make you laugh a little bit, because I think at times, even at the worst of times, we need to smile and laugh a little bit. But we don't want to lose why we're here today. And why we're here today is to honor all the veterans on the wall that heals, all those who have the fallen heroes, all veterans of the Vietnam War and all wars, for their service to this country, because without them, none of us would be here celebrating our freedoms and being able to do whatever we want to do and having those opportunities. So now, the guy who I think epitomizes the veteran of the United States, the guy who I've known since we were kids, and to see how he made this dream come true, a dream he wanted to, not for himself, but for his nephew, the other 6 guys from Plymouth, and for every single Vietnam veteran and every single United States veteran. I'd ask you all to please rise for Sergeant Clyde Peters.
Well, we're all here. This has been a trip, believe me. I put an application in over a year ago. I think it was in June of sometime of last year. Then I was notified in December after I begged to get it here, just about. So we were awarded in December the Wall That Heals to come to Plymouth. So the first thing I did, the guy I used to strike out all the time, Billy O'Boyle, he told you a different story. See, he lied. And he jumped right on it for me. Me and Billy go back since we're kids playing Little League ball. So thank you, Bill. You still lied about the pitches. First of all, there's so many people to thank. Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, Cynthia Long, she's the director and manager of the Wall That Heals. We had many, many talks, me and her, about the Wall That Heals before We were even awarded the wall. And I told her how important it is and was to our community. So I explained to her at the time I went to Vietnam in 1968 that we needed something to bring us together. And I told her that 7 men from our community were killed in Vietnam, all different ages, of course. And I told her about my nephew, David. David was a medic with the 25th Infantry Division. I talked to David 3 days before he got killed. He got killed on a booby trap and ended his life. We were supposed to meet. We never had that opportunity. So it's not just about David, it's about all who served this great country from all wars. Look at the guys from Iraq and Afghanistan, how many tours of service they have had. I only put 1 tour in. I was an 18-year-old boy. I mean, I wanted to serve my country, and I did. And I was happy to do so. I'd do it again, but I'm too old. I can't do it no more. But foremost, I want to thank the Wyoming Valley West School Board and Joe Majer. If it wasn't for them, this would not be here, and that's a fact, okay? So let's give them applause, please. I want to thank all our distinguished guests here. They're awesome people. I know John for what, 1 year, John? Just kidding, John. He's right. I always bug him at Dunkin' Donuts. He looks at me and goes, oh boy, here we go again. I go, no. Sometimes it was very important that we talked about things, right, John? You bet. And to all our other representatives, God bless you, and thank you for being here. God bless you all. I mean that sincerely. Holly Spees, she was my left, my right, my left, and my right. So she covered all bases for me because you know why? One person cannot do this. It's impossible. There's no way it would ever happen. Be proud of your community. They came together to bring our boys home. I was instrumental about bringing the wall out there that we dedicated of the 7 soldiers on that wall. That was important. I went by, me and a friend of mine one day, we walked down the main street, and I said to him, I said, you know what? We just got back from Washington, D.C., down there seeing the Vietnam Memorial. I says, how come we don't have nothing here for our Vietnam vets? There's 7 of them that was missing, they're gone. He says, no, I don't know, Clyde. I said, we're gonna find out. And guess what? Within 8 months, we had that thing erected, and we did. Because I said, there's no way that 7 young men who gave up their lives for me and all of us is gonna be ignored. It's not gonna happen. So that Vietnam Memorial you see out there today, we got it done. I made sure of that. Thanks to all the people that donate their time and money for everything. So as we, all here, which I'm honored, and I mean that sincerely. I'm a Vietnam vet, and I'm proud of being a Vietnam vet. I was a young boy, 18. I went in when I was 17 years old, because at that time, there was no opportunities around here. So I thought, I went on a buddy plan. 3 guys of us went in, and I says, well, boy, maybe I made the wrong mistake. But anyway, with David Lee, me and David was only a month and 5 days apart. So we were more like brothers than uncle and nephew. So I remember what happened, vaguely mostly, but they got me up and they said, you had to go to the Red Cross. I thought, oh boy, what's going on? Especially being in Vietnam, you don't know what happened, and we didn't. And I thought the first thing, my dad was a little bit older at the time, I thought maybe something happened to him. So when I got into the Red Cross office, the lady said to me, you have a nephew named David Lee? I said, yes, I do. And I looked at her and I knew right then and there. I said, he was killed, wasn't he? She said, yes. I didn't know what to think at the time, being a combat veteran. We try not to show our emotions in any way possible. So I left her as a soldier would have left. Then I bawled my eyes out. I really did. I didn't know how that became about. How am I going to get home and bring him home? Then I found out after I did bring David home, my sister had a lot to do with that. His mother. Her name was June Gracie. She said to me when I came home, she said, me and Imgard, which was my brother's wife, said we called the Pentagon and we demanded that you would be the escort to bring him home. So evidently they were giving him a hard time, and that's all it took, because they laid into him. You have to bring somebody home with an escort. And they said, yeah, well then I want my brother here. She said, I'm not going to be burying my brother along with my nephew. So that's what happened, and that's how I came home with David Lee. But all these gentlemen on the wall here from Plymouth, I didn't know. We all grew up together. It was a small town, you know. It's not like New York City where nobody knows anybody. And that's the way it was. And you know, there's so many people to thank here. Look at this crowd. You people are awesome. Give yourself a hand. I mean that sincerely. I'm honored to be here. You know what? I had this dream about bringing the wall many times. I've talked to people about the wall. I even called one time Chicago. I was talking to the guy. He was one of the drivers at the time from the wall, and he says, it's tough to get. It really is. Out of like 100 applications or more, and only 34 sites are picked. So you figure what your odds of getting it, like zil to none. But then again, like I said, I told a lady my story, and it was factual. It wasn't lying about anything in any form. And she agreed that it was necessary for us to bring the wall here. So on behalf of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund, Julianne and all them, thank you so much. I mean, God bless you. As they used to say, time heals all wounds. That's not factual. I'm living proof of that. There's not a day that don't go by that I don't think of our men who died in Vietnam. And to all you Vietnam vets, I'm sure you all feel the same way. We lived it. It's etched in your mind for forever. It don't go away. You might think it goes away, but something might set it off and say, guess what? That reminds me of something that happened to me. Joey Dobko was a good friend of mine. Me and him hung around all the time. He was in the Marine Corps. He was in the Battle of Quezon. He got messed up. He was shot in the head, lost his eye. He had a steel plate put in his head. He just died about 4 or 5 years ago, I think, right, Nancy? Something like that? 2011. And he was a hell of a good guy. I mean, it was a guy that fought for his country with the Marine Corps, and all of them. I mean, how do you say to the families? You can't say thank you to any of them, because you know why? If it was all up to us, we bring them all back and they'd never be there in the first place. So anytime you see a vet, please do me a favor. Tell them thank you for the service, especially these guys with the Iraq and Afghanistan. I mean, I know I couldn't do it. There's no way. I did my year, almost a year, and I seen the hell that goes through war before and after. I thank God I have beautiful children and grandchildren that I could see every day. These gentlemen, they missed out on every opportunity of being an adult because they served their country. So every day that we sit and think about how bad our life really is, think of this wall. Their life is a lot worse than ours were. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.